So even some of the easiest aquarium plants in this hobby can give some people some trouble. And so today I thought it would be kind of cool to talk about the few plants that can literally like survive the apocalypse. They could literally live in a toilet. Okay, maybe not like an actual toilet, but like a bucket in the corner of the room. That's kind of like a toilet, right? We'll start off with my picks on these, and then a little bit later we'll go and we'll ask another expert what he thinks, because I feel like we kind of get into a bubble of plants that we use and then we forget about all the other ones that are out there. Before we start, I know that this tank is literally the background of the whole video, but just don't look at it too closely. Okay, it's a work in progress. We kind of got somewhere with it. Just don't, whatever you do, just don't focus on it. Don't look at it too much. All right, so the first plant, if you're having troubles with plants, you want something that's going to be absolutely bulletproof no matter what, could literally survive anything. It's actually not even a plant, but I think most of us treat it as a plant, and it's just going to be the moss ball, okay? Not moss, technically not a plant, it's a type of algae, but this stuff is literally invincible, okay? I'm just probably going to refer to it as a plant throughout this video, even though just know that it's not. This thing can live in a bucket with no light for literally years. They're a good little, not a plant, they're a good little thing for just creating a microenvironment. They're great for shrimp. They're good for small tanks where they can actually fill up a decent amount of room. I think they're kind of like one of those plants that's not a plant that it kind of stands out. Like it doesn't really mesh well with a lot of other aquascaping details that you might be trying to do. So just know that they're kind of like a sore thumb in the aquascaping world. You know, aquascapers don't really use them. But there is a huge issue with the moss ball, and that is it might not be 100% legal where you're at. So a few years ago, back in 2021, there was an infestation of the stock that was coming into the US. They had a bunch of zebra mussels on them, really bad invasive species that no state wants to have getting in their waterways. And so there was like a whole thing where if you had them, you had to, you were advised to destroy them, which is what I did. So I don't have any moss balls. I don't have a ton of B-roll to show you of moss balls, unfortunately. All the stuff you're seeing is old footage from before that time or borrowed from somewhere else. It might actually be legal to have them. It's just like, I just don't know. And it seems like nobody else really knows. I think that some are coming into the country and they get pre-cleared by like whatever entities are responsible for that. But your state that you live in, they still might not be a thing that you can have. So if you're gonna go like the eBay route or the sort of the wild, wild west for buying things, I'm sure you could buy them, but just be really careful and make sure that you can have them, and particularly that the source that you're getting them from is doing something to pre-check them, because I don't think it's an issue that just disappears. But yeah, I mean, it's a shame because moss balls are kind of a handy thing. Like there's some cool things that you can do with them. You can take them apart, you can glue little pieces all over the place. Like it's just an impossible thing to kill. Way back in the day, before these troubles happened, I used to, I had a bucket that just had moss balls in them for me whenever I wanted them, and it just sat in the corner of the room. It got no light, the water never got changed. Sometimes they would end up looking a little funky, but if you were to take those, put them in a tank, give them a little bit of a better condition, then they would just turn back into normal, good-looking moss balls. But they're kind of a cool thing, and I've done some weird stuff with moss ball material in the past. I thought the scapes turned out okay. Maybe I can find an example of that, but you can break them apart, glue them onto things. You can stick sticks into them and float them up in the air of your aquarium, right? Like, there's some flexibility and I think some cool things that people can do with moss balls. Kind of one of those organisms, we'll call it, that you can be pretty creative with. So yeah, if you're having troubles with plants, pick up a moss ball or two, and I don't think you're gonna have any issues with them. The next one, and this is in no particular order, also kind of an obvious one that maybe you've heard of. We'll get to some ones that you might stand out a little bit more, but it's just gonna be Anubias. So Anubias nana petite, Anubias nana, Anubias barteri. There's more varieties in that, but those are the three most common ones and the ones that you're probably going to find anywhere. If you're new to aquarium plants in general, the only difference between the three is just size. So the petite, the little one, is the smallest, the nana is the next up, and then the barteri can get huge. So I think most people are going to be wanting to use the nana petite and the nana just from a size perspective. But barteri can be cool. I mean, if you have a tall tank and you want, big leaves to grow up, then that can be a cool option. This is a plant that it has its drawbacks. I'll talk about those in a second, but it's one of those where I've had them in a bucket and then forgot about them, like we were scaping a tank, and then 3 months go by, that bucket hasn't really gotten any light. It's probably got a bunch of junk floating around on top of it, blocking even more light. And that Anubias is just chilling. Like, it's not growing, right? It's a slow grower to begin with. It doesn't have any light. It's not going to do anything. It's just going to be chilling, but it's not dying off. It's not losing leaves. It's not something that you're going to plant in your tank and then have it like just disintegrate, unless it does. That is one of the downsides of Anubias. It's this thing that, I don't know exactly what everybody calls it, but Anubias rot, rhizome rot. It's a thing that, I'm pretty sure it's a bacteria that comes in on certain plantlets. It's something that seems to pop up even if, like, you just scratch up the rhizome, like planting it into kind of porous material like lava rock can kind of trigger that, and the plant is basically just going to actually disintegrate. I think that's probably the biggest drawback to this plant and the only like real catastrophe that can happen. So if that's something that's happened to you, I'm sure, you know, let me know down in the comments. It's happened to everybody. I'm pretty sure it's happened to me a bunch over the years, but it seemed to have gotten a little bit better. I don't know if the farms are doing something different with the handling or if they're doing some kind of like preventative dip or something. Still something that happens from time to time, but it's not as common, I think, as it used to be. Tanks that have Anubias in them, I think you can really go to the extreme with the low lightedness of the aquarium, if that's how you would describe that. You can set up a tank if you're really worried about algae, excess nutrients and light causing issues. Like, you can basically not run a light on your aquarium. I know you'd probably never do that, but the plant isn't going to suffer from that. And I think even some of the lowest light environments that you could even possibly think of will cause Anubias to be a good plant for you. Basically, it's not going to die and wilt away on you if it doesn't have an appropriate amount of light. I think we're still talking about Anubias. The only other drawback to this plant, still bulletproof, by the way, but it is prone to having algae grow on it, particularly things like blackbeard algae, staghorn, the really bad ones that you don't want. Even cyanobacteria will colonize over it. That'll probably happen to all of the plants that you have, regardless, not just Anubias. Don't look in the tank. But I think with that said, I mean, Anubias is still a really awesome plant. It has a cool look. It goes really well in the aquascaping world and with a bunch of different scapes that you might be trying to make. And overall, I just think it's an awesome, pretty freaking bulletproof plant. The fourth plant that we're going to talk about is not this one. The next one, I think it's going to get you a little bit more engaged and thinking more. This next one is kind of a cop-out. I hope you don't hate me too much, but it's just duckweed. Like, I can't not mention duckweed in this list because it is the, I mean, what does Dustin call it? The herpes of the aquarium world? 100% true. I mean, a lot of people, including myself, don't love duckweed. I don't hate it like some people do, but it is one of those plants that it just sticks around for forever. I think it could actually live in a toilet. All that being said, duckweed is good at a few things. Nutrient removal, you can't deny it. It does that, which is good. It's also a food source for select fish, like goldfish will love to eat that. If you're like me and you have a growing fish room and you're constantly moving things around and doing things, you're probably going to have a systemic duckweed infection no matter what. So you have to learn to kind of deal with it. You can get super about it and remove it like nonstop and keep your tanks free of it. Sometimes I think you just have to like embrace stuff like that. It's really not that bad of a thing. It's mostly just an annoyance, but it is technically a plant and I'm pretty sure it's kind of impossible to kill. There's some things with allelopathy, and I've heard this a million times. If you grow, jungle val, it'll release a chemical that kills duckweed. I don't know if that's 100% true, but I do know out of all the floating plants, duckweed is the one that just always sticks around. It always survives. Like, we have tanks with other easy floating plants like the Sylvinia, my favorite, where the Sylvinia has died for whatever reason. It's just floating there dead, and the duckweed is starting to thrive. I don't know if that's some kind of weird interaction between those two. I've seen them coexist just fine in other tanks. That I have that happening right now, but when it comes to floating plants, if you want to get into them, duckweed, unfortunately, is that one that is just going to survive for forever. All right, so the fourth one, and actually there's going to be a fifth one. I got another one that I want to talk about, is just Rotala. So not all Rotala. There's a bunch of fancy ones that do appreciate more light, and they're not going to behave for you unless you have CO2 and things like that. They're just not going to look as good or really get to their true potential without things like CO2. But when it comes to the default Rotalas, so like Rotala Green, Rotala Red, I think they're basically the same species, maybe not. But those two are plants that I've also had the experience of like, they're just super hard to not have survive in your tank. Like, same thing with the Anubias. I've had them in buckets, just floating. They seem to, they might drop a few leaves, but the whole plant isn't gonna die. The thing stays viable, and months later of neglect, you can plant it and put it into a nice environment and have it do pretty well. I don't have a ton of Rotala right now. I think this is Rotala Green. I'm actually not sure exactly which one it is, but we put it in here just a couple sprigs. They were kind of covered in algae, and 5 months later, not a crazy amount of growth, but the stuff is spreading out. These plants don't need a ton of light to actually grow, which I think is cool. Like, that's what we all want to have, right? Something that grows, something that we can see a change in our tanks. That's part of the fun. And so kind of to contrast with a plant like Anubias that isn't really going to do that much, what you get is basically what you're going to have a year later. These are plants that are actually going to grow and are going to be fun to interact with. Trimming them, I know, can be annoying. That's not everybody's thing, but it's an easy process to do. You don't need like fancy aquascaping scissors. Sometimes I just bust out like the random school scissors or whatever you call these things and just hack it back. It always grows back really well, even without CO2. If you do have CO2 and you have adequate lighting to pair with that, this stuff's just going to grow like crazy. So it's also going to transform a little bit and look a little bit different, have bigger leaves and things like that. So there's a few different sides to these Rotalas, these basic ones, that I think make for a pretty interesting plant that's also pretty tough to not have do well in your tank. All right, the last one, number 5 that I could think of as far as bulletproof plants go, plants for those that are having troubles with plants, is going to be Guppy Grass. It's going to be Guppy Grass. So this is a cool little plant. It's basically a floater. You can try and stick some of it in the substrate and have it be like a weird stem plant that grows all over the place, but it's just going to grow everywhere. So you might as well just float it. You can put rocks on little portions of it to hold it down if that's your jam, if you want to kind of style it up a little bit. But again, another plant that doesn't require anything special. It can be severely neglected if that unfortunately accidentally happens. And it's just gonna chill. I'm sure you could end this stuff's life if you really wanted to, but I don't think I've ever been able to do it. Like, I've had it a few times over the years. I just got a new portion of it when we went to Pisces. Spoiler alert for the next segment of the video. But yeah, it's just a really cool plant. It's great for breeding, provides a lot of cover. It's a nice color of green that I think goes with most substrates and most kind of scapes that you're building, right? Like, it is a plant that is gonna take over and sort of dominate your tank over time. So if you want to keep things neat and tidy, you're definitely going to want to stay up on trimming it. The great side effect of that is that you're just going to get more Guppy Grass because you trim it and that'll signal it to shoot out some new roots, and it'll just start to build another mass somewhere else wherever you decide to put it. So those are the plants and I guess one type of algae, technically, that I could think of. There's some honorable mentions, though, that I want to just throw out there. There's stuff like Dwarf Sagittaria, that almost made the list. I'm not entirely sure why I didn't throw it in there. Maybe you just could pretend like I did. There's other stem plants that seem to be a little easier compared to other ones. Stuff like, I feel like Bacopa might be one. I just haven't had it in so long. I can't really remember all of my experiences with it. Java Fern was like so close to being on the list, but I don't know. I've had issues with it in the past, and I know people that they put it in a tank and you get some weird kind of yellowy leaves and it doesn't really grow. So I didn't feel like that exactly made the cut. Definitely not completely bulletproof. And I'm sure there's a handful more plants that other people would consider to be super bulletproof. Part of the issue is that, at least when you do this, even if you do it for a super long time, like me, over a decade, you get into like a bubble of plants that you like to use. So I sort of have a set of plants that I typically gravitate towards when I'm thinking about doing escape. If you've followed me for a while, you know Monte Carlo, hairgrass, dwarf sag, Java fern, like very much always my brain just goes there. But other people are different. And so that's why I thought it was important that we go talk to somebody else, somebody who is also like an expert on plants and aquascaping, and find out what their top easy plants are. And maybe we can shed some more light and give you some more options. All right, we're at Pisces Aquaria, and we got Andrew here. He is going to give us his take on this. So we've been talking about easy plants.
Yes.
And I think I just described how it's easy to get in like a bubble of aquarium plants that you use, and then you kind of
growing at home already.
You kind of forget about the other choices. So we're going to ask you, what are 3 plants that are just like within your sphere that are pretty bulletproof, easy to use plants that you like to go to?
3.
3. It could be maybe more. It could be less.
My number 1 is Buf Phandra.
Okay.
Always. You have some B-roll of our Bus, right?
Yeah, we're gonna clip that in.
Okay.
I like Boost. I didn't think of that.
Buf Phandra, because it's easy like Anubis, but there's like way more colors and textures, and you can leave it alone for years, and it looks great no matter what. Number 2. I gotta think, dude. I don't know. Number 2, I would say cryptocoryns, especially in aquascaping. When you use soil, you can just plant them, and they're beautiful. There's a lot of different textures and sizes as well. There's rare ones, there's easy to get ones, there's small ones, there's big ones, there's long ones.
Okay.
It's a versatile plant.
And you don't have issues with them?
No.
Ever?
They melt initially, and then they're good.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I can see that. You got a third
we have
one?
soft water here, so they're good also.
Okay.
I don't know. Third one for us would be, should we say Guppy Grass?
Yeah. I mean, you can say whatever you want. I think I'm going to include Guppy Grass, but that's fine if that's one for you too. I mean,
I don't use it ever personally though, I guess. Scaping, or is it just for bulletproof plants?
it's just in general. Like, it could be for scaping. It could be, I know that kind of makes it more confusing, but if Guppy Grass is one of them, like, I've never been able to kill Guppy Grass. That's why I used it. You got a bunch of Guppy Grass back here.
We use Guppy Grass in our fish tanks a lot because it just lives in any condition. Low nutrients, low light, and the fish get to hide in it.
Yeah, shrimp love it. I mean, obviously, like, a lot of these tanks are just this is like your shrimp side of the room.
And they're just hanging out in it. I think for this kind of thing, Guppy Grass is great. You can use it in escape too, but it's unruly. You have to control that thing. But it looks good if it's growing vertical, like here in escape.
Yeah, that's cool. So in
That's
the beta
tough,
fish
though.
tanks.
Top 3 plants.
I know it's not an easy one. I mean, I kind of started the premise of it of like, what have I put in a bucket before and forgotten about, and it's still been alive like 6 months later.
Yeah.
So
Anubis.
yeah,
It just grows funny if it's upside down, but it'll be okay.
I didn't want to put Java Fern in there just because I feel like Java Fern takes a little bit more care.
Some people's Java Fern looks like this forever.
Right.
With the brown leaves on it.
Yep.
And then it's maybe not one of the best for everybody, but if you get it past that stage, it usually is okay for everyone.
You can take it out of the bucket where you forgot it, but you're going to have to trim it up. You're going to have to clean it up a little bit.
Take the babies off the leaves and replant them.
Exactly.
Yeah, you're right. I don't know. Val's a good one.
Yep. I was gonna say Val almost made my list, but again, I just don't use it enough. So
I put it in clients' tanks in the background of their big tanks because it's low maintenance for us. Most of the time, we have to just go and pull some runners out and maybe trim the tops. But in tanks that are like a foot, 2 feet tall, 3 feet tall, Val is great in the back, and as long as it's got some root tabs, it takes care of the water really nice for us too.
Right. And like most of these plants that I've been talking about, you've been talking about, they aren't plants that you have to go out of your way to fertilize or put root tabs in the soil so that they have anything. Like, they're going to grow regardless.
Right.
If you do those things, it's going to be
They'll live
probably
a little better.
Yeah, it's going to be a little better.
No matter what, usually.
Exactly.
Then they clean the water good for people with lower tech systems. That's nice.
Very nice. Ashley wanted to mention moss.
Moss.
What kind of moss? There's so many mosses.
They're all pretty easy to grow, but in here I have Taiwan moss, Ricardia, Bicidens Fontaneus.
Yeah, you got a whole little
Some of the slow growing
moss patch going on in here. This tank is cool.
This tank just got a water change, so it'll clear up too in a second.
Don't judge us. It's a fresh water change, but no, this tank is. I had some B-roll from it from last time when it was super clear. The moss wasn't as developed, but I can.
Great,
I can see like your vision on how this is gonna turn out. Like it's gonna look awesome.
The Bacardi is layering up really nice.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
I
super
gotta
good.
make it snow.
Make it snow. Minerals for the plants.
Minerals for the shrimp.
Recalibrating.
Like moss, Buf Phandra, crips.
Moss, Buf Phandra, and crips.
All right.
Moss, crips.
All right.
Buf Phandra does this. It flowers underwater. It's very pretty. There's an open one. There's a new one.
Very cool.
And then they have sparkly. Can you see that?
I think so.
Sparkly blue, pink, holographic leaves. Some of them.
You gotta
Some
look
are
real
green.
closely, but you could see it. Oh, it's tight.
Just the way it reflects the light is very pretty, and Anubis doesn't do that. Like, I don't know if you can catch that on the camera, but that's going pink, green, blue, and in real life, maybe purple too.
So cool.
Yeah.
I need some more boosts
How
in
can
my
you
life.
beat that? That's so sick. You know?
It's been a while since I've had like a decent amount of boosts. I need to. We'll add that to my list.
And
Put
look,
it on
here's-
my tab.
Here's a variegated Buf Phandra. If
Yeah.
anyone's into the collecting plants. These are still expensive in the hobby, but they're not that hard to grow. They just need a little more light as well.
So cool.
Yeah.
No, I think you gotta show the internet the clump.
Here, let me move it so it's not in this corner. So this guy we grew out from a few pots of Kang Red from Tropica after a couple years.
Damn, can I?
Buf Phandra, touch it, yeah.
May
You
I
can
touch
touch my plants.
May I touch your boost? Yeah, that's nice.
It's
you could.
nice.
I mean,
And
that's
it's been in this tub for like a month now.
yeah.
It's okay, like you're saying, you can leave it in there and it's okay.
That's like a hat's worth.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a full wig of
Yeah.
boosts.
You can put it on,
I think that's how they classify the amounts of boost is based on
on how many hats it
how
can
many
That's how I do.
how many toupees it can create. Where's all your crips, Andrew?
All the crips are right here, yeah.
Yeah. What is this thing called? What do you call this?
This is UNS's plant holding system. It's called a Foresta plant holding system.
Okay,
It's
is
a
this
terrarium?
special for stores? Because I've never seen.
Yes.
Okay.
They just came out. We were the second store in the United States to get these. I think the first was ADG, and you guys, or you talked to them about theirs too.
Yeah.
But we keep the Anubis in here. We were talking about. We keep crypts in here. We have some nice looking crypts right now. Crypt Petchii from Tropica.
Yeah, that one's cool.
We have Wilsii from them as well. A little skinnier.
Very nice. Does this? So I mean, obviously this would be great for Anubias, and you keep
Yeah.
Anubias in here.
Yeah, we
Do you
have
find
some.
that like with the Anubias rot?
Pinto.
Do you find that this helps that in
This
any way?
is generally
Like,
better for sure. Yeah.
Okay.
I pull a couple out that get it here and there, but it's not as bad as what happens in the water for sure. There's more airflow and water flow going on in here.
right.
I said swords, right?
Maybe.
I don't know.
Did you?
I don't know. I should have. Swords are great too. We have lag and andras as well. Lag and andras. I was gonna say lags because we call them lags for short. This is like between a sword and a crypt and like the size for most of them, and it can also grow epiphytically if you want it to. But really cool red leaves, kind of like Bus where they get a little shiny.
They get if it melts. I mean, those are like out of water leaves,
Yeah.
but the underwater leaves are.
They look very
are
similar. They're just a little bit pointier, and then they get that little shine like the Bus do underwater as well.
Sick.
It's a red pearl sword. That's a pretty one. These get a big red leaf first, and then they turn dark green in the water. I don't know. Here's a skeleton king. Look how good that one's looking.
Moboos.
That's Bus skeleton king, the dark black one. It's growing back from, you know.
Dope. You got bits on your fingies.
UG is a plant.
Yeah, dude, UG's bulletproof.
Bulletproof. UG.
Bulletproof, bro. Thanks for helping me make this video a little bit more spicy.
Yeah.
Some more options for the peoples. You
Top
get
3 plants and maybe 2 or 3 others. Yep.
there's probably a couple extras in there. You get your legit fish food, dude. Where to go?
Oh yeah.
You hiding it in the back? Andrew, quit goofing off and help your customers. We had to bring Andrew some of that legit fish food.
Yeah.
Can I have some of this? I don't have enough fish food at my house.
I heard this one's a pretty good one. There's a guy I know that makes it. Our customers like it. Every time you bring it, it disappears pretty quick.
Good, man. Good,
and
man.
We have a shelf that's empty.
So there you go. There are two different dudes' opinions on what some of the easier plants are, some of the extra easy ones, the ones that can take a little bit more abuse. It was interesting to get Andrew's perspective on things. Like, he obviously has a slightly different take on it, but there was some overlap between the plants that I told you about before that segment. So I thought that was kind of cool. Hopefully now, if you were somebody who was looking for some good plant recommendations, you got what you came here for. So if you are looking for the plants, we'll have affiliated links down below and in the comments and stuff if you actually want to go ahead and get some of these. Shopping through those links is like one of the best ways that you can support the channel. It helps a tremendous amount. You have no idea. And if you were going to get the stuff anyway, like, it just makes sense. So thank you very much in advance if you decide to do any of that. And I'm looking down here at my rabbit. He looks like he needs a treat. So I will see you next week with another video. Who knows what it's going to be? Just kind of filming stuff on the fly as it comes to me. Let me know what you thought of the video down below. And thank you again for watching. We'll see you next week.